Hi, my name is Rebecca Bonomo. I'm a junior at Bloomsburg University and I am studying political science. For my U.S. foreign policy class, I'm going to be discussing human trafficking across the U.S.-Mexico border. I'll start with some history. The U.S.-Mexico border has the highest number of both legal and illegal crossings of any land border in the world, except for Canada and U.S. Mexico is a large source, transit, and destination country for persons trafficked for the purpose of commercial sexual exploitation and forced labor, and they're mostly lured by false job offers. According to the U.S. Department of State, the United States is a destination country for thousands of men and women and children trafficked from all areas of the world. In the last 10 or 20 now, since the enactment of the federal sex trafficking criminal statute in 2000, the number of human trafficking cases brought in federal courts has dramatically increased. There are three types of trafficking. The first is labor, which is 52%. The second is sex, which is 40%. The third is sex and labor, which is 6%, and 2% is not specified by Polaris Research Analysis, which is where I got the majority of my details of this. Who is at risk? Females of adult age are often targeted. People of Mexican ethnicity are often targeted, and that is mostly when trafficking comes from Mexico to the United States and not United States to Mexico. And the third is minors. There are three main states in the United States that get targeted for the most input and output, and that is California, Texas, and Florida at 1, 2, and 3. Along with it being a huge crisis for both countries, it's also a multi-billion-dollar operation for those who traffic. Traffickers made a total of $411.5 million in February, taking people from Mexico and Central American countries to the U.S. border, which amounts to about $14.6 million each day in February of 2022. We'll take a look at previous U.S. administration with Donald Trump. Trump called for a $4 million increase in funding toward investigating and prosecuting human trafficking in the U.S., in addition to a proposed increase in grant funding for state and local efforts. Trump has issued 2 executive orders targeting human trafficking. The first was aimed at disbanding transnational criminal organization that traffic humans in February 9th of 2017. The second, on January 31st, concerned online child trafficking and sexual exploitation in the United States. He also built his campaign on building a wall and often used human trafficking as a way to gain support. The current U.S. administration, led by Joe Biden, has a national action plan to combat human trafficking, which involves 3 focuses: prevention, protection, and prosecution. Prevention involves educating vulnerable populations about risks. Protection involves intervention and services to protect and assist victims. And prosecution involves holding those engaged in trafficking accountable. I have 2 policy recommendations. The first is protection of immigrants. The second is enforced labor laws. Legal barriers created by President and past administration leave immigrants more vulnerable to be trafficked, which is why protection of immigrants is so important. And enforcing labor laws would help the majority of trafficking victims because it often happens in areas with low enforcement of labor laws. I have a few suggestions for protecting immigrants. The first is using T visas. This allows victims of human trafficking to remain in the U.S. for work, which is often while they're lured to traffickers is with the promise of work. Certification letters provide adult victims of trafficking with access to benefits and services, which helps with investigating the traffickers. And date in court ensures immigrants get their day in court no matter what. And the last is taking a look at how the U.S. contributes. I suggest to the current administration to look inward at our migrant and border policies. How is this contributing to the vulnerability of immigrants? For labor laws, I have trafficking recruiters target immigrants seeking to find and keep a job. The current aggressive immigration instills fear in immigrants that keep them vulnerable. Extending labor protection to this demographic would lead to legal migration eventually. So I suggest to President Biden to first look inward at our immigration process and policy to ensure that the U.S. is not contributing to this crisis. And more practical solutions, I suggest instilling protections for immigrants and enforcing labor laws. There are my sources, and thank you very much.